is you deaf, man? I said we ain't got shit going on right now.
So you're supposed to starve because your man got shot.
Ever seen the movie Paid in Full? It's all about the gritty street life and gangsters in New York City. But here's the wild part. One of the main characters is based on a real guy named Alpo Martinez. But hold up, did that movie really spill all the tea? Not even close. Word on the street is there's way more to Alpo's story than what we saw on screen. And trust, it gets crazy. So who was Alpo Martinez really? He was a notorious drug kingpin running things in Harlem back in the 80s and 90s. Alpo wasn't just some random dealer. He was sharp and strategic, turning drug deals into a multi-million-dollar hustle. He teamed up with big names like Rich Porter and Ozzy Faison, and together they were making serious bank. But let's be real, living that kind of life wasn't just risky, it was straight up deadly. Now the movie showed some of the drama, but real life, it was on another level. Alpo wasn't just about the money, he had a dark side. People say he didn't just run the streets, he ran over anyone in his way. He was linked to multiple crimes. Yeah, it was that serious. And here's the twist. After he got caught, Alpo didn't stay loyal to the game. Nope, he flipped. He gave up names to the feds just to cut his prison time short. That's right. Some folks started calling him a snitch. But what made Alpo step into that world in the first place? A lot of people think he was trying to break out of poverty. Harlem was rough back then. Jobs were scarce, money was tight, and fast cash from the streets looked like the only option. But was that move worth it? What do you think? Most people would say no way, they wouldn't take that path. But for Alpo, that street life felt like the only ticket out. Was he just a victim of his surroundings? Makes you wonder, right? The truth is, while Paid in Full gave us a taste of Alpo's hustle, it barely scratched the surface. The real Alpo Martinez? Way more twisted than what the movie showed. He wasn't just a slick dealer. He was flashy, fearless, and straight up dangerous. A legend to some, but a nightmare to many. The film kind of made him look like some kind of street legend. But in real life, things were way darker. Should the movie have shown us the full picture? Let's break it down even more. When you think of Harlem in the 80s, three names hit hard: Rich Porter, Ozzy Faison, and Alpo Martinez. Out of the trio, Alpo is easily the most talked about, and for all the wrong reasons. His story is drenched in betrayal, violence, and fame that just won't die out. Alpo's journey started in Spanish Harlem, born June 8, 1966. He came from a Puerto Rican family, and yeah, he spoke Spanish like a pro. That came in handy later when dealing with certain connects. As a kid, he was pretty well liked. Even went to stay with a white family during the summer through something called the Fresh Air Fund. He got along with them fine. But every time he came back to Harlem, reality smacked him hard. The blocks were heating up. Drug dealers were everywhere, and the streets were pulling him in fast. He kicked things off by robbing local dealers, then worked as a runner, hustling product from one spot to another. Him and his squad weren't quiet about it either. They had a rep for being wild, loud, and reckless. That attitude brought heat, and his mom had enough. She sent him away again through the same summer program in '79, hoping it'd straighten him out. But by 1983, Alpo was already catching the cops' attention with minor crimes. He wasn't about to live broke. He wanted his own cash, and he wasn't waiting around for anybody to hand it to him. Alpo was obsessed with stacking money, and he didn't care what he had to do to get it. In 1985, while locked up for a weapons charge, he crossed paths with Rich Porter. That one connection would change everything. When Alpo got out, he was hungry for a real plug. And that's when he met AZ Faison, one of the most powerful dealers in Harlem. At first, AZ wasn't sure about it, but Rich had Alpo's back and vouched for him hard. That stamp of approval opened the door. Alpo later said AZ gave him the shot that made everything possible. And once he was in, he made sure everyone knew his name. Ruthless, cold, and laser-focused on getting rich. AZ put Alpo to work handling dirty business, enforcing the rules, putting pressure on problems, and making sure nobody dared to cross the crew. Alpo was the type to step up when others backed down. As his role expanded, Alpo was trusted with big money moves and street-level protection. When stick-up kids started targeting AZ's spots, Alpo clapped back with no hesitation. That earned him even more power. Aziz shifted the main operation to 135th Street and offered Alpo his own turf on 145th. Most people passed on it, but Alpo grabbed it without a second thought. By the mid-'80s, Alpo was out of prison and fully locked into the street game. Him and his partners were raking in $40,000 to $50,000 each, every single week. That kind of cash made Alpo feel untouchable, and he loved the spotlight. Whether it was for wild stunts or just his flashy vibe, he kept people talking. He was out here riding dirt bikes through Harlem, kicking police cars, and turning the city into his playground, straight up causing high-speed chaos. He even used to pull up at Myrtle Beach with his squad, flexing their bikes and whips like it was a car show. But that same thirst for attention,
Get up. You a Calvin Dick? No, come on, man, let's do this.
it started bringing heat. Alpo couldn't resist showing off, crashing bikes in the middle of the city just to go buy another one like it was nothing. That kind of flashy living was bound to catch up eventually. The very next day, Alpo blew thousands on fireworks, just to light up the block and be the center of attention. He loved the spotlight, but in the drug game, that kind of noise brings problems. Staying low-key is how you survive, but Alpo didn't care. Meanwhile, Rich Porter kept it cool, moving in silence to dodge heat. He believed in keeping his business quiet. Alpo just couldn't get with that, and his loud lifestyle started causing tension. The first one from the crew to catch real heat was AZ Faison. He got ambushed and shot 9 times, 2 bullets to the head, but somehow he made it out alive. After that brutal hit, Ozzy decided he was done with the streets. He pulled out of the game, choosing peace over chaos. But Alpo, he saw an open lane and hit the gas. When Raphael Edmond, a major dealer in Washington, D.C., got arrested, Alpo made his move. He slid down to D.C. ready to take over the whole scene, and it worked. His business in the capital started booming. He was stacking so much bread, he was bringing duffel bags full of cash back to New York. Even though things were getting risky, Alpo and Rich Porter kept working together, splitting connects and keeping the money flowing. Alpo had a gift. He moved fast, saw opportunity, and knew how to flip it into profit. He could grab kilos of coke in New York for $18,000, drive 5 hours to D.C., and flip them for a $3,000 profit per kilo. That kind of hustle made him a serious force in the game. While Rich was already respected, Alpo was catching up fast, making major cash and building strong connections on both ends. Eventually, Alpo switched up his whole strategy. He stopped selling small-time street deals and started moving major weight. He was offloading kilos, big amounts, and started targeting Rich's old clients to expand his empire. Sometimes Alpo would buy products straight from Rich Porter, who was no small-time player himself. But once Alpo switched up his game and started moving serious weight, things between them got tense. Word is, Rich started charging Alpo an extra $3,000 to $5,000 per kilo. And when you're moving 100 or 200 kilos at a time, that adds up fast. That's when things really started to break down. Alpo wasn't having it. He felt like Rich was not only taxing him but lying about where the product was coming from. All the loyalty, the partnership, the money they made, none of it mattered anymore. Trust was dead, and what happened next? It sent shockwaves through the streets. Rich Porter's slaying wasn't just some random hit, it was huge. But what really made it wild? The person behind it wasn't some rival. It was someone people thought was like family. Alpo later gave a chilling recount of that night. He said, "I was meeting Rich that night. He got into a van. Once he got in, I locked the doors. As I was pulling off, I was asking him, 'Yo, Rich, where did you get that coke from?' He even admitted, I wanted to make him comfortable." Then things took a dark turn. Alpo said he was mad, real mad. "I just had a death in the family. I called my brother," he explained. That night showed just how cold and cutthroat the game had become. Once there were 3 kings running Harlem's drug scene. One, Aziz, bowed out after surviving 2 bullets to the head. The second, Rich Porter, was taken out by the third, Alpo Martinez. After that, Alpo bounced. His face was too hot in New York, so he vanished down to D.C., a city already drowning in violence and substances. In the early 1990s, Washington, D.C. had one of the highest homicide rates in the entire country. It was straight up known as the elimination capital. And that's where Alpo decided to build his next empire. Washington, D.C. was no joke back then, especially in black neighborhoods where the crime rate was through the roof. The city was drowning in substances, violence, and nonstop chaos. Shootings weren't rare, they were happening almost every night. And in the middle of it all, Alpo kept doing his dirt, pushing his operation harder than ever. But with the streets that hot, every move was a risk. The homicide rate was insane, and way too many innocent people got caught in the crossfire of brutal drug wars. At the time, there was another street figure in D.C. making serious noise. A guy named Wayne Perry, aka Silk. This dude ran D.C. in terms of substances, robberies, and pure fear. His legend was wild. By the time he was just 12 years old, way back in 1974, it's said he had already caught his first body. That dark moment kicked off a lifetime of street crime. Wayne didn't stop there. He was already moving weight as a kid, but 4 years later, in 1978, he leveled up and started robbing banks. Real high-risk stuff. But things turned tragic when his younger brother became victim off a police officer during one of those robberies. That loss hit deep. But Wayne kept going. Every time he pulled a job, he somehow slipped away. His ability to dodge the law earned him a reputation and a nickname that carried weight in the streets. In 1984, Wayne landed in a serious shootout. Rivals came for him and he clapped back. The police caught him and charges were filed. But surprisingly, the story didn't end how you'd expect. Even law enforcement said Wayne was just defending himself. The jury believed it too, and he walked out not guilty. He ended up getting sent to Lorton Youth Center, but by 1987, he was back on the streets and ready to reclaim his spot. Wayne didn't have cash when he got out, but what he did have was raw drive and street smarts. He quickly built a new crew and started working as a hitman, moving in silence while keeping his name out of the spotlight. On the surface, Wayne acted like a joker, clowning around to throw people off. But don't let the jokes fool you. He was ruthless. He had no problem robbing other dealers for their contraband, cash, and chains, and then splitting the spoils with his crew as long as they stayed loyal. Right around this time, Alpo was sliding into D.C., figuring out the scene and locking down new connections. His operation started exploding, and he was pulling in millions. But success brought attention and danger. Word got out, and threats started coming in. Some folks wanted to test him, some wanted a cut. One of those people was Michael Frey, also known as Salters, aka the Godfather of D.C. Frey had a powerful name and big plans to take full control of the city's drug scene. But Alpo wasn't trying to play second to anybody. He had his eyes on being the boss. No partnerships, no middlemen. Meanwhile, Wayne was back behind bars again, this time for an attempted charge. His bail was set at $10,000. And honestly, the streets felt a little safer while he was locked up. But peace in D.C. didn't last long.
Game, I dry up on the streets real quick.
That's when Shelton Shorty Pop Watkins, leader of the Junkyard Band, made a move that flipped the script. Shorty Pop had ties with Wayne and saw an opening. He reached out to Alpo, who was looking for muscle and protection in D.C. Shorty offered a deal. If Alpo covered Wayne's bail, Wayne could become his enforcer. Alpo saw the play, recognized the power it could bring, and dropped the cash. That decision, it shifted the whole balance of power in D.C. and the streets felt it instantly. Wayne getting out of jail was just the beginning. Things were about to shift big time in D.C. Alpo knew exactly what he was doing when he dropped that bail money. Getting Wayne on his side meant power, protection, and fear, all wrapped in one move. Alpo wanted Wayne's loyalty, and freeing him from that cell was a serious way to earn it. Once Wayne hit the streets, the two got tight fast. They started moving as a unit, Alpo handling the deals, Wayne handling the muscle. But it wasn't all smooth. Their bond stirred up drama. A lot of people weren't happy Alpo had Wayne by his side. Wayne was feared in the streets, straight savage, and folks had been hoping he'd stay locked up. Still, Wayne showed real respect for Alpo. He never touched the contraband or money. That wasn't his lane. His job was simple but serious. keep Alpo safe, and make sure nobody disrespected him. If someone even looked at Alpo the wrong way, Wayne was ready to step in as no questions asked. But Alpo played it smart. He kept Wayne away from the stash and the cash. No details, no business talk, just loyalty and protection. That way, if anything ever went sideways, Wayne couldn't snitch on what he didn't know. And since Alpo took care of him well, Wayne had no reason to flip. Their partnership ran so deep, they even kept women stashed in a crib just 2 blocks from the White House, like they were untouchable, living wild right under the government's nose. Even though they were deep in a dangerous game, they made it work. Alpo kept Wayne paid and protected, and Wayne made sure nobody dared to step to him. Together, they were a serious force, the kind of duo the streets watched and whispered about. Alpo was stacking millions, living large, and Wayne was right there with him, using that street money to take care of his people. But as always, when you rise too high in the game, enemies start creeping out from every corner. One of those enemies, Michael Frey. And Frey wasn't just talking. He wanted Alpo gone. So Alpo and Wayne came up with a deadly plan. On July 16, 1991, Wayne pulled the trigger, and Frey was hit. He died the next morning. But instead of solving their problems, the hit turned up the heat. Now the cops were really watching Alpo, and they weren't letting up. After Frey's death, the investigation into Alpo kicked into overdrive. That's when Nathaniel Peanut Watkins, cousin of Rich Porter, stepped in and dropped a bomb. He told the feds that Alpo was the shot caller behind the whole drug network. Peanut said he even saw Alpo hand over $300,000 to a dealer, moving major money from D.C. back to New York. While law enforcement was building their case, Alpo wasn't slowing down. In fact, he was out here making even more bold and violent moves. Back in the 80s, a man named CIO Montana Benson had built a powerful name for himself out in Brooklyn. His street rep was strong, and eventually it carried over to Washington, D.C. too. Montana had deep connections with local dealers and treated the people on the block with respect. That's how he got the nickname Montana, from hustling hard on Montana Avenue. But things went left when Montana crossed the line you don't come back from. He started messing around with Alpo's wife. The streets buzzed about it, but Alpo didn't know until his wife told him Montana had slapped her. That was it. Alpo lost it. Fueled by rage, Alpo teamed up with his trusted enforcer, Wayne Perry, once again, this time to take out Montana permanently. One day, Alpo's revenge finally hit the streets. After a local basketball game, Montana got ambushed, caught slipping in broad daylight. Alpo's crew pulled up and shot him straight in the face. It was bold, messy, and loud. And the cops, they noticed everything. This hit just added more heat to the fire already burning under Alpo. Law enforcement had been watching him for a while, and now their case was building fast. They already believed Alpo was a major shot caller in the drug game, but Montana's casualties made it real clear. This guy wasn't just hustling, he was playing deadly. Nobody knew exactly how many lives Alpo had taken or ordered, but it was clear the number wasn't small. And eventually, the game caught up with him. Almost 2 years after the hit on Rich Porter, Alpo's empire came crashing down. History remembers November 7th, 1991 for Magic Johnson's shocking announcement that he was retiring from the NBA after being diagnosed with HIV. But that same day, Alpo Martinez, just 25 years old, got arrested in Southeast Washington. The FBI had been chasing him for over a year, and they finally got their man. The very next day, Alpo sat in court, facing a mountain of charges. His name was tied to serious crimes, and the feds weren't holding back. They wanted answers about multiple eliminations, including the eliminations of D.C. drug boss Michael Anthony Salters, aka Frey, plus Timothy Cohen and Mark Mullen. Those last two were shot down in broad daylight at an Oxon Hill, Maryland car wash. In court, Alpo didn't have that usual cocky energy. He kept quiet, just sat there sniffing, his eyes watery, as the reality of it all hit him. The king of Harlem streets, now just another number in the system. At the time, the Washington Post dropped the bomb. Alpo was facing 14 serious charges, including the elimination of Rich Porter and Porter's 12-year-old brother, William Sues. And if things didn't go his way, he was staring straight at death row. With the pressure closing in, Alpo made the move that changed everything. He flipped. He agreed to work with the authorities and snitch on none other than his own right-hand man, Wayne Perry. This deal was his only shot at dodging the needle. Alpo's lawyer made it clear if he wanted to live, he had to help take Perry down. So that's exactly what he did. Alpo's cooperation sealed Wayne Perry's fate. The once feared enforcer ended up getting 5 life sentences. No parole, no mercy. It was a cold ending for someone who used to run the streets like a boss. In the game Alpo played, most people don't get clean exits. It's either the grave or a cell. And for Alpo, he saw that writing on the wall. Desperate to save himself, he broke one of the street's most sacred rules, never rat. And because of that betrayal, a lot of the same folks who once broke bread with him now turned their backs for good. Wayne Perry wasn't just anyone. According to Lorton Legends author A.E. Williams, Perry was the most infamous hitman to ever walk the streets of the nation's capital.
Happen to anybody just
Put that away, man.
Right. But that's gonna happen to anybody who disrespect his family.
And now, he was buried in prison forever, thanks to Alpo's testimony. In return for giving up names, Alpo got 35 years, but he didn't serve all of it. He was released in 2015 and slipped into the witness protection program. But here's where things get strange. Rumors started flying that Mary J. Blige, the queen of hip-hop soul herself, might have been helping Alpo land a movie deal before he died. After his release, Alpo was trying to get into the film world, and some folks say Mary J. was quietly backing the project. Was it true? Nobody knows for sure. But it had people talking. Word started buzzing that Mary J. Blige might have played a key role in helping Alpo Martinez lock in a movie deal. According to the Yonkers Times, the infamous Harlem drug boss turned informant stayed busy during his final year alive. The outlet claimed Alpo had grown tired of people telling his story without his input, and once he was released, he wanted to control his own narrative and put it out on a big stage. That's when he supposedly linked up with legendary stylist Misa Hilton Brim, the fashion icon who shares a child with Sean Diddy Combs. Misa allegedly introduced Alpo to her longtime friend, the one and only Mary J. Blige. And from there, things started moving. Mary, known for her music and acting, is rumored to have connected Alpo with some powerful names in Hollywood. Talks reportedly kicked off with Lionsgate Productions, which was planning to open a movie studio in Yonkers in 2022. The plan? Shoot the Alpo project there in 2023. It might sound wild, but when you think about it, it all lines up. Lionsgate owns Starz, the same network that airs Power Book 2, and Yonkers is Mary's hometown too. So the idea of her getting involved? Not that far-fetched. But that's not all. Street Talk said Alpo and Misa Hilton were actually dating before his death, adding even more fuel to the rumors. In Paid in Full, Cameron's portrayal of Rico, based on Alpo, was unforgettable. People still talk about that role today. But Alpo's name didn't just live on in movies. His legacy was also kept alive in music. Plenty of rappers name-dropped him in bars, painting him as either a legend or a cautionary tale. No matter how you see it, Alpo was determined to own his story, even if the streets weren't ready for it. Even in death, Alpo Martinez's name keeps popping up in the culture. Rappers like Jay-Z, Meek Mill, and Nas have all dropped his name in tracks. Meek even used Alpo as a metaphor for betrayal, comparing a jealous character to him in one of his bars. That's how deep Alpo's legacy runs in the streets. Even his own son, Paparazzi Poe, who Alpo didn't meet until he was grown, has been trying to break into the rap game. His track Brick Squad Monopoly dropped not long before Alpo's life came to a sudden and violent end. On October 31st, 2021, Alpo Martinez was shot and silenced while sitting in his Ram truck on Frederick Douglass Boulevard, right in Harlem, the same place where his whole story started. As he lay dying, he reportedly tossed the contraband he had in the car, trying to ditch the evidence. Just like that, one of the most infamous figures in New York's drug history met his end, in the same streets he once ruled. Meanwhile, Wayne Perry, the feared hitman who once walked beside Alpo, took a whole different route behind bars. While doing his time, he converted to Islam and started reaching out to young people, warning them not to make the same choices he did. From inside prison walls, he's now preaching peace, growth, and the importance of staying far away from the trap life that took down so many. The rise and fall of Alpo Martinez is more than just a wild street tale. It's a real reminder of how quick the game can flip on you. Crime, betrayal, fast money. It all comes with a cost. If you found this story wild, hit that like button, drop a comment with your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe for more real talk. Share this with someone who needs to hear it, and we'll catch you on the next one.